if some idiot tells you that engineering lacks romance or heroism, then you must twiddle your moustache, laugh at them scornfully, and direct their attention to one of the most important aeroplanes ever built. There are very few pieces of engineering which are so familiar, so beloved, so guaranteed to bring a lump to the throat as the magnificently named Spitfire. Today is a special day. It's exactly 70 years since the very first Spitfire, affectionately known as K5054, took its maiden flight.
Now this aircraft still clearly means so much to people. Hundreds have turned up just to stand here in the car park at Southampton Airport to watch.
The British love this plane for good reason. We owe the engineers who built the Spitfire and the brave pilots who flew her an incalculable debt, for they played no small part in keeping Britain free from Nazi tyranny. The plane itself, I am told, is a genuinely brilliant bit of aeronautic engineering, which still captivates pilots like squadron leader Charlie Brown.
Well, the Spitfire is the ultimate carefree handling aeroplane. It's got performance, but at the same time, generally you pay a price for performance, which is sort of maybe finicky handling at the margins. Spitfire, no, I promise you, it is absolutely carefree.
So what made the Spitfire so fast and agile? She was designed by R.J. Mitchell, a young British engineer who had recently won the coveted Schneider Trophy with a seaplane that reached a record-breaking 341 miles per hour. But when he was asked to design a world-beating plane for the Royal Air Force, Mitchell knew there was more than a trophy at stake. Mitchell understood that if the British were to stand a chance in the looming war with Germany, they had to dominate the skies. And so he designed for the RAF a fighter which was at the cutting edge of aviation technology. His single-shell alloy fuselage made the plane strong and light, and her distinctive, elegant wings made her incredibly maneuverable. The novel wing shape was especially hard to mass produce, but it put the Spitfire in an aerodynamic class of its own. The Messerschmitt 109 was the German answer to Mitchell's plane. It has flat, oblong wings which just look stuck onto the body of the plane.
Rubbish.
Now compare the elegant wings of the Spitfire. They're not small, they're big enough to accommodate retractable wheels and heavy guns. But they are delicately moulded, seeming to grow organically out of the fuselage. They rise gracefully at an angle from the body of the plane. In outline, they look like a nicely rounded half moon, and they're tapered to be thinner at the tips. This created the famous elliptical shape, and this was the key to the Spitfire's success. It meant that the angle of airflow over the wing at the fuselage was greater than at the tip. This gave the pilot plenty of warning of a stall. The plane would start to talk to the pilot through feedback to the controls. Basically, the stick started shaking. And in combat, the Spitfire had to be kept very close to the edge of stalling to achieve the minimum turning circle. The wings made the Spitfire infinitely more agile than the Messerschmitt. What made it faster was the most famous aviation engine of the war, the legendary 12-cylinder, 27-litre Rolls-Royce Merlin, which Sir Henry Royce based on that of Mitchell's Schneider seaplane. The Merlin enabled the Spitfire to fly fast and carry more guns and ammunition and still be highly manoeuvrable, with a steep rate of climb and a tight turning circle. It was the perfect plane. One of the original test pilots, Alex Henshaw, is today celebrating the anniversary of the first Spitfire's maiden flight. He says he's still in love with her, even though he's 93 and she's only 70.
When you first flew one, did you think this is something special? This is out of the ordinary?
Oh, yes. Yes, not only just for performance, but for handling qualities, not only in the air, but for landing. I mean, there isn't an easier aircraft in the world to land than Spitfire.
Is that right? What do you think gave it the edge over its German equivalent?
Oh, no question about it. The new concept of construction and the design, which gave it a performance at certain altitudes, weights and angles of attack and what have you, over and above the 109. The 109 was a good aircraft, but it did have a lot of weaknesses.
Gordon Mitchell remembers the day his father brought him to the Southampton airfield to see his new fighter plane.
Actually, it looked a bit of a mess.
Really?
Because it had come out of the factory
Right.
unpainted.
So
it had bits of yellow, bits of green, and I thought to myself, it'd look a jolly sight better if it had a good coat of paint.
But could you say it was not just any ordinary
Oh,
aeroplane?
yes, I think I did.
Yeah.
I asked my father, I remember, something like, "Are you happy with it?"
Yeah.
He didn't say much to start with, and then said, "Yes, reasonably so."
By the time Britain declared war in 1939, the RAF had on order more than 2,000 of the new fighters. Sadly, R.J. Mitchell never knew what an enormous difference his plane was to make. In June 1937, 2 years before war was declared, Mitchell died of cancer, aged just 42. In the Battle of Britain, the Spitfires and their pilots brought down 529 German fighter planes and bombers. The Luftwaffe ace Adolf Gallons was convinced that it was the Spitfire which had thwarted the Nazi air assault on Britain.
Is it true that the Germans did it at one stage, try and get a squadron of Spitfires for the Luftwaffe?
Well, Galland, you see, when he was criticised by Goering and said, well, what the hell can we do? What can we get you? To give you a better... And he said, a squadron of Spitfires.
That's a great accolade, isn't it?
It
That's
is,
a wonderful story.
It'll live forever,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
will. And it's the truth.
It's impossible to measure how far the Spitfire and the pilots that flew her changed history. But the famous assessment of Churchill is a fittingly grateful and poetic memorial. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.